Lost Ancient Chinese Dynasties. Earliest Chinese Dynasties. The five earliest ancient Chinese dynasties were Tang Cao, Tang Dynasty, Yu Cao, Yu Dynasty, Xia Cao, Xia Dynasty, Shang Cao, Shang Dynasty, and the Zhou Cao, Zhou Dynasty. The Xia Dynasty was credited as the earliest dynasty that founded China. So, where were the Tang and Yu dynasties? Tang Dynasty, Tang or Tang, First Dynasty. Chinese believes that the earliest kingdom was the Tang, which is phonetically similar to Tang from Yadang. Adam Dynasty. This was the period from the creation of man, the fall of Adam, and the offering of sacrifice. Chinese believe that Nuwa, Eve, was the first to be deceived by the devil, snake, so she was remembered as having the head of a woman and the body of the snake. She used the dust of the earth to create man after her own image, meaning that all her descendants were sinners like her. After Adam rebelled against God by partaking the forbidden fruit, the glow from his face and body disappeared. 走火入魔. Adam's son, Abel, sacrificed a sheep at the border of the Garden of Eden. Abel set the precedent for every Chinese emperor to offer sacrifices yearly at the border sacrifice. Chinese historians recorded the lifespan of men during this period was over 800 years. Their archives correspond to the Bible account that men lived to around 1,000 years before the deluge. Men lived in tents or houses and kept livestock. They were skilled musicians, ironsmiths, and coppersmiths. Their knowledge and skills were passed down to Noah's descendants.
And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. And as for Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Neamah.
This period saw fallen angels, demons, wreaking havoc on the earth by defiling the human race. They interbred with human women to produce demonic descendants that were called the mighty men of old in the Bible. According to ancient Grecian, Chinese, Romans, and other old world mythologies, these creatures possess supernatural powers and can perform great magical exploits. The complete history of this lost ancient Tang or Tang dynasty is recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 1 to 6. Yu Cao, Yu Dynasty. Chinese believes that Huang Wudi, Yellow Emperor, was the father of all men and had three sons, Yao, Shun, Yu. The whole earth was destroyed by the deluge during their time. The flood story was the most pervasive of all the other legends in ancient China. The Shu Jing records the flood waters are everywhere, destroying everything as they rise above the hills and swell up to heaven. God commanded Noah to build an ark with the intention for his family and animal species to survive the destruction of the earth. Noah, who had three sons, named Shem, Japheth, and Ham, became the ancestor of all human race after the deluge.
So he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the ground, both man and cattle, creeping thing and bird of the air. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive.
百子千孙, 100 sons and thousands grandchildren. God made man fertile for procreation in order to repopulate the earth. It was not uncommon for a family to produce up to 100 sons in those days. With longevity, Noah's sons could have repopulated into a big nation of 30 to 100,000 of people each before the dispersion. 三皇五帝. The period of the 3 kingdoms and 5 emperors in the Chinese history is mysterious and a challenge to fathom. 三皇, 3 kingdoms. Noah's 3 sons, namely Shem, Japheth, and Ham, each established their own kingdom under the names of Yao, Shun, Yu, Wudi, 5 emperors. They are the descendants of Shem. First emperor, Shem. Second emperor, Arphaxad. Third emperor, Salah. Fourth emperor, Eber. Fifth emperor, Peleg.
To Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan.
Joktan was the younger brother of Peleg, who was the 5th emperor, Huang Wudi, in Mesopotamia. Joktan left Mesopotamia with his 13 sons and families during the Great Dispersion. He founded the Xia dynasty in China around 2070 BC. According to legends, Shun, Peleg, the 5th emperor in Mesopotamia, abdicated the throne in his old age in favor of Yu, Joktan, whom he deemed worthy. Yu's succession as the king marked the start of the Xia dynasty. Actually, Shun, Peleg, the 5th emperor in Mesopotamia, sent his brother Yu, Joktan, to start his own kingdom beyond the Himalayas. The complete history of this lost ancient Yu dynasty is recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 6 to 11. Xia Cao, Xia dynasty. The Xia dynasty was the first dynasty in traditional Chinese historiography. According to tradition, the Xia dynasty was established by the legendary Yu the Great after Shun, the last of the 5 emperors, gave the throne to him. Brethren, with the discovery of the 2 lost Chinese dynasties from the Bible, you can proceed to read more recent history of China. The narratives were documented from the oracle bones or from the records of early historians. It should be mentioned that there are a lot of discrepancies in the findings. Warning: histories were written by men to please the kings and to satisfy their whims and fancies. Flood in the Yellow River Basin. Since the legendary Yu the Great Joktan was the first to establish the Xia dynasty in China, then he must have been sent by the 5th emperor Shun, Peleg. The frequent, extensive, and deadly flooding of the Yellow River Basin was the biggest problem for the Mesopotamia migrants, where flood was unheard of except for the deluge. Emperor Yu's most important mission was to control the flood to minimize deaths and damages to farmlands and properties. During the torrents, all the tribes would unite to mitigate the flooding. Stories of failures of court officials and the great achievements of their heroic kings were common during this period. Kun, a court official, tried for 9 years to stop the flooding, but every year the water grew stronger and more lands were covered and people killed. Finally, Kun constructed a series of dikes which he hoped would hold back the water, but the dikes collapsed, causing further destruction and deaths. Kun then killed himself while, according to others, he was imprisoned by Yu's son. With the explosion of population, Joktan's 13 sons would each become a big tribe. They were forced to disperse to other parts of China to form their own kingdoms. Since histories were written to please the kings, you will find that historical records of the same war or event would be presented differently, thereby causing a lot of contradictions resulting in confusion and errors. Since Xia was the first dynasty in China, and Emperor Shun, Pilek, handed him the kingdom, then Emperor Yu, Joktan, must be the first to migrate from Mesopotamia to the Yellow River basin of China to start the Xia dynasty.